Welcome to the 233rd town meeting for the town of Johnson. My name is David Williams, and I will be your moderator for today. We will begin this meeting as we have, I don't know whether all 233 years, but most of them anyway, with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Michael Dunham will lead us.
Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Vermont is one of the few states in which people in communities such as ours have a hands-on control over the spending of all of the money that gets spent in this town. And so it's very important that people show up and very important that people vote. And very important, for my point of view, to make sure that the people who are voting are people who have gone through the checklist. So are there folks with us who have not been through the checklist? Seeing none, we'll not have a problem with that. This meeting is operated under Robert's Rules of Order. Here it is, 715 pages of fine print. It's my job to kind of keep us on track with this book and with the state of Vermont, which has made actually some amendments to this. So those are the rules by which we will be proceeding. I'd like to introduce you to the Board of Select Persons who are with us today. Chair Eben Patch, Vice Chair Duncan Hastings is not able to be with us, Mark Woodward, Peter Hammond, and Michael Dunham, who led us in the pledge. Yes, and Peter, I'm sorry, Peter, my mistake here. Peter Hammond. At this point, I would like to call on Eben to make a presentation.
Good morning, everybody. This year's town report is dedicated to Lois Fry. As a member of the community for decades, Lois has never shied away from coming in and lending a helping hand and showing her dedication to the community. Her depth of knowledge of Johnson's history, as well as willingness to accept its future, has always been helpful to me as a board member. And her friendly smile, can you hear me? Has always helped at select board meetings. Please join me in a round of applause for this year's town report dedication, Lois Fry. Yes, I heard.
Lois, please come forward. Thank you.
Stay there.
Oh, stay right there. I'm just about to say to the next 50 years. Thank you.
Volunteering is a wonderful sport. Everyone should do it.
And I believe Michael Dunham has something to say with regard to lunch.
I didn't realize it was going to be quite this soon, but good grief, it's only 25 after 9 when it can't go to lunch. Anyway, on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Mark Woodward for his years of service on the board. It's only been about 3 years, but thank you very much, Mark, and we certainly appreciate all your good counsel. You will certainly be missed. And thank you for your years in the legislature. And also, thank you for many years, 23, 24 years maybe, of looking after the food business. I mean, you didn't do it all, but you did a lot of it in making sure everybody was fed at noon. The community certainly appreciates all you've done for it, and we appreciate you too, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the somewhat quaint rules under which we operate is a rule that says that if one is going to address this meeting, one must be a citizen registered to vote in Johnson. And if we had other people we wish to hear from, that we would need the consent of this body. There is something under Robert's rules called the rule of unanimous consent, and sometimes I can use that to avoid having to have a motion, a second discussion, possible amendment, et cetera, and that is happens when I would simply ask, do I have unanimous consent to whatever it may be? And in this case, I'm asking for, and if you don't give me unanimous consent, we will go through the motions and seconds and discussions, et cetera. But I'm asking unanimous consent for you to grant permission to our legislators, Dan Noyes, Richard Bailey, and Richard Westman, who will be here later, ask unanimous consent for them to be able to talk to us. Is there any objection to their being able to speak to us when they get here? Seeing none, they have your consent. The second group will be a gentleman named Randall Zott and Tom Gallinet, who are both involved with the planning and execution of town business. They are not residents, and so I request unanimous consent for them to be able to address this meeting. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we have that taken care of. Thank you very much. And now, with apologies to all of you who have been here previously for town meetings, I am under an obligation under Robert's rules and the state of Vermont to give you this recitation of how we are going to proceed. The business that we can conduct here today is limited to the 14 articles that appear in the warning and which are part of your the packet of materials in the town report. Under those rules, with regard to each article, we have to have someone make a motion. And generally that is, the motion will track what you have on your town report. And it's something that that has to, first of all, the warning has to be read in its entirety. And then as we go through the individual ones, I have to repeat that again. And then after we've had motion, the second discussion, and we're going to move on to a vote, I required to read that warning item for a third time. Anyone who falls asleep during that proceeding, I have this to awaken you. Okay. All of that being said, we will move on to the tedious business of my reading the warning to you. The legal voters of the town of Johnson, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet in town meeting at the gymnasium of the Johnson Elementary School in said Johnson on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 9 o'clock in the forenoon local time to transact the following articles of business. Article 1, shall the voters elect the following town officers, elect a moderator for the town meeting, elect town select board officer for 2-year term, select town select board officer for 3-year term, elect auditor for a 3-year term, elect an auditor for a 1-year term balance of a 3-year term, elect auditor for a 2-year term balance of a 3-year term, elect town delinquent tax collector, elect library trustee, elect Lamoille Regional Solid Waste Management District Supervisor. That is Article 1. Article 2, also on the ballot, the paper ballot down the hall, Article 2, shall the voters elect the following: Lamoille North Modified School District Board of Directors. To elect one Lamoille North Modified Unified Union School District Board of Directors for a 3-year term, and to elect one Lamoille North Modified Unified Union School District Board of Directors for a 1-year term, which is the balance of a 3-year term. Notice is hereby given that the ballot boxes for reception of ballots for the election of town and Lamoille North Modified Unified Union School District officers, Article 1 through 2, shall be open at 9 o'clock a.m. when town meeting opens and shall close at 7 p.m. in the evening, and I declare those polls open. And I defy any of you to say Lamoille North Modified Unified School District officers 3 times without stumbling. Then we move on to the part of the meeting that you folks are here for, which is the annual town meeting. Article 3, to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and others as included in the town annual report. Article 4, to establish rates of compensation for the town officers. Article 5, shall voters authorize total fund expenditures for operating expenses of $3,699,957.86, of which an estimated $2,300,508.31 shall be raised by taxes, and $1,399,499.55 by non-tax revenues. And this is the real put-you-to-sleeper. Article 6, shall the voters authorize the town of Johnson to collect property taxes to the town treasurer in 4 equal installments per 32 Vermont statutes annotated section 4792 as listed below. The delinquent taxes and assessments have charged against them an 8% commission after the 4th installment per 32 Vermont statutes annotated section 1674, and interest charges of 1% per month or a fraction thereof for the first 3 months, and thereafter 1.5% per month or a fraction thereof from the due date of such tax. Such interest shall be imposed on a fraction of a month as if it were the entire month per 32 Vermont statutes annotated section 5136. Payments are due in the hands of the treasurer by 4 p.m. on the below due dates. First installment to be paid on or before Thursday, August 11th, 2025. Second installment to be paid on or before Monday, November 10, 2025. Third installment to be paid on or before Monday, February 10, 2026. Fourth installment to be paid on or before Friday, May the 10th, 2026. Article 7, shall the voters authorize the Select Board to appoint a town clerk as provided in 17 Vermont statutes annotated, section 2651E. Article 8, shall the voters authorize the Select Board to appoint a town treasurer as provided in 17 Vermont statutes annotated, section 2651F. Article 9, shall the town authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor with future audits to be provided by a public accountant licensed in this state in accordance with 17 Vermont statutes annotated 2651B, parens A, close parens. 10, shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Johnson Public Library Reserve to be used for the purpose of offsetting future expenses to be funded by any one or a combination of unexpended funds from the library equipment capital, building maintenance, equipment purchase current year, the building capital expense lines of the budget, or a reservation of year-end budget surplus in accordance with 24 Vermont statutes annotated, section 2804. Shall the town establish a reserve fund called the Beautification Committee Reserve Fund for the purpose of funding the operation and expansion of the Beautification Committee, excuse me, to be funded by unspent funds annually allocated to the Beautification Committee in accordance with 24 Vermont statutes annotated section 2804, excuse me. Article 13, shall the voters of the town of Johnson advise the Select Board to investigate and pursue subdividing jointly owned property with the village of Johnson. Property is to be included and not limited to are the mail house, village garage, town garage, lower storage building, and the 180 plus minus acres off Lendway Lane behind, excuse me, town and village garages. To transact such other business as may be properly brought before this meeting. Could you repeat that, please?
You said you skipped Article 12.
Thank you. Oh, that. Actually, I don't think I did, but I'll do it again. Shall the voters authorize total fund expenditures for operating expenses of $3,699,957.86, of which an estimated $2,300,508.31 shall be.
I believe that's Article 5. I think he was saying Article 12.
Article 12, okay. On the back. Okay. Okay, right. Article 12, shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Class 4 Road Reserve Fund to be used for the maintenance of Class 4 roads to be funded by any one or a combination of dedicated budget line item, year-end balance from the Class 4 maintenance budget line, or reservation of year-end budget surplus in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. Thank you. That being said, we'll move on to Article 3, to hear and act upon the reports of town officers and others as included in the town annual report. Previously, I treated that as being intended simply to point out any mistakes that might have appeared in the warning or in the town reports. It's my understanding that certain committees of the town wish to address their issues. I believe the language of the warning permits that. And so if anyone has some brief statements to make with regard to either corrections to these reports or reports of any one of the committees, please raise their hand. Yes, if you would come to the mic, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Jesse Whitworth. I'm the chair of the Food Access and Awareness Task Force that came out of Reimagine Johnson. I lead that group along with Bill Jasperson, who's the co-chair. The group mission is to increase food security and resiliency in the town. So far since Reimagine Johnson, we've been meeting regularly. We have invited experts to host panels for us to learn about running food co-ops and grocery stores. We created a fundraiser to help the Johnson General Store fund their opening. It looks like this month is finally going to be that month. So, I think that's great news. We created a food survey to assess community needs. You probably all received something in the mail that kind of looks like this. Has a QR code on it that goes to a Google form where our survey is. If you have not filled it out, please do so. And then finally, we have organized a community meal that will be free for anyone who wants to attend. Jasmine Uris has led the initiative on that, and that's on May 15th. So keep an eye out on Front Porch Forum and bulletin boards across town for more information. So next up for us, we're exploring different models for our grocery store as well as potential locations. We're exploring how we might bring a community center to town, inspired by the civic standard. And ultimately, this food survey will inform our next steps. But yeah, so I think we've made some progress since Reimagine Johnson, but we couldn't have done it without all of your help. I wanted to thank, on behalf of the group, I want to take a moment to thank all the private businesses, the select board, the trustees, the town administration, VCRD, FEMA, and a bunch of other members of the community that have supported us. We're all very thankful. And just to wrap up, we have a table in the hall right outside, and we're always looking for more members. So please visit us before you leave, and please fill out the food survey. Thank you.
Walter? As Walter is coming to the mic, when I call on someone, you will have to come to the mic for two reasons. Number one, if you do, everyone in the room will be able to hear the great wisdom that you have to share with them. The other reason is that we're required to keep a record of our proceedings here, so identifying the speakers as they approach the mic is important. So, Walter, go.
Thank you, David. I'm Walter Pomeroy, and good morning, everybody. I have two items I'd like to discuss that are within this report. The first item is on page 45, if people want to follow along with me. I'm looking at the accounting here for the July 23 flood accounting. Ultimately, I would like some answers, because I don't feel the report doesn't give us enough, is it shows a $50,000 deficit. One, I'd like to know where this money came from. Two, is this the final accounting related to the flooding, or do we have more FEMA money coming? Exactly how is this whole flooding incident concluding in terms of how is it affecting us taxpayers?
So we have three projects that have been obligated but have not been closed out. One is the skate park. That's $161,000. Some of that money has been spent, so that's about $10,000, I believe, for repairing a fence and a sign and other things. But then there's another, we haven't put the project together, so we can't get reimbursed for that part we've spent until the whole project is complete. We also have the municipal building. We have the flood mitigation there around the perimeter, which was on delay until we're getting a final answer on the sewage treatment facility from the village. And then lastly, the library has been left open just as kind of a fail-safe in case the move, for whatever reason, there's a hiccup with the move. We're going to leave that door open until it has to close. But we can't get reimbursed for certain aspects of those three projects until the whole project is complete, and that's that $50,000 deficit. The state has sent legislative funding as part of the '24 fiscal year to make us whole 100%. So we're going to receive 75% reimbursement from FEMA, 12.5% from the state, from Vermont Emergency Management, and then the additional 12.5% from legislative funds that were delegated to bring flood-impacted communities back to whole.
So if I could just summarize, when we get all said and done, we should be zero.
Should be.
Should be. Okay. Just as a follow-up on that, when I was looking at the financials, I do see on line 182 that there is the tax abatements. That's in the financial section of the budget, line 182. There's the tax abatements, that's about $34,000. Can we look at this as, this is kind of like with the FEMA buyouts, this is going to be kind of the permanent impact to our grand list in municipal taxes, which we're going to have to cover?
So the tax abatements were awarded by the Board of Abatement, which is the Select Board in the town of Johnson, as well as the Justices of the Peace, the Town Clerk, the Town Treasurer, and the Assessor. Those tax abatements were awarded, and I don't know of any refund that we'll get.
But now these properties are significantly lowered on the grand list. I'm just saying this 33,000 looks like it'll be the regular number that we are going to take a hit because they're no longer going to pay this amount of taxes.
So your question was about abatement, and now it's about dropping the grand list.
Yep.
I think the budget would be the time to talk about this, but
Okay.
our assessor has already depreciated like properties that people are not living in by 100%. So you actually saw a lot of that hit in last year's taxes, and there'll be a little bit more in this.
Okay. All right. If I may, I have a second item I'd like to discuss, or related to the report, or what I feel is lacking in the report. In the fall, we passed a bond related to the industrial park. We have this multi-million-dollar project that we're undertaking, but yet there's almost nothing in this report of telling me what is going on, how we're spending our money, where we are in terms of progress. There's just a couple little minor references. So what I would like is a verbal report now, if possible, about where we are, what is going on, where's the funds coming from, is everything looking good, especially in light of Washington, D.C. and change of administration. And then I would strongly encourage you that in next year, we get a much more detailed report on this industrial park. I mean, we're talking about close to a $2 million project. I think the voters and the residents are entitled to a lot more detail on what's going on. Thank you.
You wanted the update on the industrial park? I do have a plug after.
When my girlfriend's mad at me, I also have to get permission to speak, so I appreciate that you all gave me permission to speak at your meeting. I understand where you're getting at with your question. The fact is there really haven't been almost no funds expended, and the big dollar number, the $861,000 from the feds and the $861 match on our part has not been touched yet. We're still in environmental review. That environmental review is expected to be completed with all the public notices, et cetera, by September of this year. At that point, we'll be issued a thing called the notice to proceed. That's the point at which all the big money starts moving, hopefully, and we start, incurring big costs and, have to manage the money. But at this stage, we're at just a $25,000 contract, essentially. I mean, there was a contract that preceded that was about 40. The environmental review contract's for about 25,000, and basically that's all we are in terms of the project at this point.
Thank you. That's all I wish I wanted to know. That's my report.
Do you want me to give a plug real quick? Can I just give a plug on this one?
Just one thing. The folks in the audience here have been very good at identifying themselves when they come to the microphone. I'm not sure that the folks up here have done as well. When you come, would you please identify yourself for the record? Thank you. Evan?
Eben Patch, thank you for the comment, Walter. We had talked about including revenue and expense for the industrial park, but ultimately we had asked for a separate, I don't know the accounting term, but a separate account where revenue and expense can be tracked. It'll probably be in next year's town report, but I would like to let you know that that's not the only project. In one iteration, we had $1.7 million coming in for the library move, but being spent, and it just makes the line items go crazy for a single project. But those reports will be in next year's town report.
Hi, my name is Charles Flom. I went to a legislative breakfast yesterday, and after a lot of our state representatives talked, one of them talked about Governor Scott going with a bunch of other governors to DC, and in regards to Medicaid funding. He actually, this representative said that Scott said he was scared. They're going to go after, it appears, the states that expanded Medicaid from 2008, and they're going to come after it to like 20 or 30%. So I would like everybody to take a look at page 35. Okay, if you look at page 35, starting at line 417, you see the Council of the Aging. A couple of ones down, you see Lamoille County Health, Lamoille Family Center, Meals on Wheels, Retired and Senior Volunteers, Adult Daycare Out and About, Clarina Howard Center, American Red Cross, Salvation Farms. I mean, all of this is going to be really impacted in a big way when the feds get done with us. Do we have any kind of backstop? Are you considering any kind of backstop to this? Thank you.
What do you mean by that? You want to take it? I'm not sure the exact reference to backstop. The page that you, do we have any backstop? Okay, do we have any funds for this? Those are appropriations that are in the town report. So by approving the budget, when we get to article number 5, that is in essence asking the taxpayers of the property taxpayers of the town of Johnson to raise $34,000 to write a check to each of these appropriations. So do we have the funds? If the budget's approved, you'll be paying those funds in your property taxes. It has nothing to do with state or federal money, any of those specific lines.
Well, what happens if that money from the feds is cut out? We're going to let these organizations sink, or what are we going to do?
As the town of Johnson, as long as the organizations exist and the budget is approved, that is the amount that we will pay. It's the property taxpayers' money. Obviously, all of these organizations serve a great purpose, and I'm sure that the select board can work on advocating for them. I'm not sure if you're proposing that the town taxpayers of Johnson fully float these organizations or not, but those are the funds that are requested, those are the funds that are included in the budget, and those are the funds that will be spent if approved.
At this point, the conversation seems to be swinging to Article 5, which is the budget. To the extent that you're,
Beth has a report question.
okay, I know, I'm going to get there. But to the extent that under Article 3, we're talking about things that really belong under Article 5, would you please pass on them, and then we'll get to them when we talk to the budget, speak to the budget. With that in mind, are there any further remarks? Beth?
Thank you, David. Beth Foy. I would just like to call attention to page 50, which is the town administrator's report. I just have 2 points that I would like to make. In the second paragraph, it says in the first sentence, it says, for the first time rebuilding with the next flood in mind. I just want to correct that Johnson has continuously had floods in mind over the years. I grew up here and I can attest to that. So I don't think it's for the first time. I think we are always thinking about floods and the impact of our floods. So I just want to make that statement. And then same paragraph, last sentence, it talks about Johnson being in an identity crisis. I take issue with that. I have a very strong identity in Johnson. I think our identity is based on the perspective of everybody in this room, the culture we exude, like we have a very strong community. Sometimes it's a tough situation that we're working through, and sometimes it's really positive things. I think that we have a really large volunteer organizations that are committees and our groups, and there's just a lot that happens in Johnson, and we have some pretty exciting businesses, nonprofits. You know, we have things happening in Johnson, and sometimes that can get muddied a little bit by the harder issues of flooding, for example, sometimes of the college. There are topics that are not easy, but it doesn't mean we don't have an identity. We have a very strong identity, I would say. So, thank you.
Anything further addressed to Article 3? And by the way, sometimes, as hard to believe as this may be, sometimes I miss a hand out in the crowd here. If I do, don't be shy, stand up, say, hey, this person wants to speak. All right, that being said, we'll move on to Article 4, to establish rates of compensation for the town officers. In the current circumstances, I believe the chair receives a lordly sum of $2,000, and it's $1,500 each for the other 4 members. With that information in mind, is there a motion with regard to Article 4? What? Well, first, before we first or second or anything else, if someone has a motion, please go to the microphone, identify yourself, and make the motion. Thank you.
Beth Foy, so moved.
Is there a second? Walter, second. Yes, sir. Nope. Oh. Okay. I identified the second to the microphone. Foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of small minds. Okay, any discussion? Gentlemen, have anything to offer? I am seeing no hands. Motion then is to keep the rates of compensation for the coming year at the same rate as they were in the previous year, which was $2,000 for the chair and $1,500 each for the other members. That being so, the question is yours. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Appears the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and we'll move on to Article 5. Shall the voters authorize total fund expenditures, the operating expenses of $3,699,957.86, of which an estimated $2,300,508.31 shall be raised by taxes and $1,399,449.55 by non-tax revenues. Is there a motion with regard to Article 5?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, and
Evan,
has
Mark.
Evan made the motion, Mark made the second. Okay? Care to address the meeting?
Okay, I guess we're on to the meat and potatoes here of town meeting, and that is the budget, of course. I'm gonna go over the budget page by page, highlighting a couple items. We're here to take questions as we go through, so I will go over the highlighted items. If you have questions on that page, ask them, and of course, at the end, we can ask more questions. So I'm gonna start on page number 21. And the first few pages of the budget are revenue. That revenue could be property taxes, it could be grants, it could be donations or fees. That's what the first few pages are, and the majority of the highlights will be on column G. The budget that's in front of you represents a 4.18% increase to property taxes. And on page 21, the first item that I'd like to highlight is row 30. That is the pilot payment that the town receives in lieu of taxes for the college property. You'll notice that this past year, we lost about $50,000 in revenue for that, and we're projecting to lose more. The reason for that is because the formula that is used for the pilot payment is the insured value of those buildings multiplied by the town's CLA, or common level of appraisal. And our CLA is dropping steadily over the years. We do have a townwide reappraisal planned. But as that continues to drop, unless there is a change at the state level, our income will continue to drop on that line. The CLA is in the assessor's report. I believe we were around 74% last year, and I think we're somewhere around 68% this year. Another item I'd like to highlight on this page is row number 33. Which is state grants to highway. There are funds for that you'll see down under expense, but there is expected MERP money coming in for energy improvements at the town garage. Are there any questions on page number 21? Come to the mic, introduce yourself, ask a question. You good?
I guess I'm unclear, Walter Pomeroy. I guess I'm unclear on your pilot explanation. The CLA, the drop in the CLA would actually increase the value of the buildings, not decrease the buildings. So there is something else going on here that is resulting in the pilot money dropping. And that is a significant number.
It certainly is. You're an accountant, so you're way better with numbers than I am. The value of those buildings up there, we do not assess or appraise. It is the insurance company's value. They did not change last year, and they do not divide by the CLA in their formula. They multiply by it. So they took 0.7 or 74%, that's our CLA, and they multiplied that by a building's value. So take $100, multiply it times 0.74, you have $74, okay? Our CLA dropped to 68%. Take that $100 and multiply it times 0.68.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and it makes absolutely no sense.
That's the formula that's set at the state. If we could control that, that would be nice. But yes, there's a huge section on the state treasurer's page, I believe, that shows all pilot payments throughout the state. And I believe last time I looked at it, the only town with a higher CLA than one was Chittenden, so they're actually receiving more money than they are technically owed in lieu of taxes, but every other town is losing money because of the formula that's there. We could certainly ask our legislatures when they're here around lunch.
Okay.
But the income is out of our control. I wanted to highlight it because it is a significant amount, like you said.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Charles, you had a question? Okay. Any other questions on page number 21? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to page number 22. A couple items I'd like to highlight here are line number 43. You'll see a substantial increase in our revenue from our highway equipment capital fund. That's because we have ordered a new truck. This is a money in, money out situation, but with ordering a new truck that is on rotation, we obviously need to bring more money in for more payments. The next item is line number 44, obligated funds, has been zero for a while. That is the select board bringing in money from the audit reserve fund to cover the audit expense for our contracted audit because we are budgeting for the audit yearly in our select board expense. The next item that I would like to bring up on this page is row number 62. This is a new line for this year, and this is money in from the asphalt reserve fund that was formed last year. With the current paving projects that we have, I believe we estimated pretty tightly that we needed $86,160 coming into revenue to be spent later. Are there any questions on page 22 of revenue? Seeing none. Page number 23 is committee revenues. All the committees work very hard. I would like to highlight that, but there's no drastic changes on that page. So if there's any questions about page 23, please ask them now. Yes, sir?
I'm going, John Gregg. I want to go back 2 pages, I think. It's taken me a while to formulate the question. There's the income raised from taxes. And then there's the other income that you said was raised from various sources, including grants and things like that. Is that projected? What happens if you don't get the grants?
Grants are typically a money in, money out scenario. There is some grants that have matching funds and some that do not.
Okay, so
but if we were planning on a grant for a project and we did not receive the grant, it would ultimately be up to town funds and the select board, but the project would be canceled most likely.
So the grants you're applying for are not to private foundations and other typical philanthropic sources. They're more for government grants?
Yeah, like project specific. I believe we're applying for a grant to armor Lenway Lane.
Yeah.
Because it washed out in the 2023 flood.
Okay.
If we don't get the funds to armor it, that project won't happen.
All right, thank you.
Okay? There is donations, yes, as well. Okay. I believe we're on to page number 24 of your town report. This is the round out of the revenue side of our budget. The item that I'd like to highlight here is line number 128. And that is the estimated fund balance or cash on hand to reduce taxes. You'll notice a pretty large increase there. The select board spent a lot of time thinking about this item. Our reserve fund balances are comfortable right now. I mean, obviously not crazy, but we did have the available cash on hand to heavily shave the loss in pilot payment with cash on hand from the past 2 years. Any questions on finalizing of revenue? Hearing none, I guess we're going to go on to page number 25. The only large shift there is row number 136. We've had a little bit of an employee turnover. Obviously, COLA and some extended hours is the reason for that to move up. Are there any questions on any other items on page number 25? Beth?
I would assume turnover would mean a decrease in budget, not an increase in budget. Can you explain?
Specifically, we had an employee that left, and we had hired back another employee in the rec coordinator position at a higher rate of compensation because of negotiations.
What is the difference in that?
Would you like to answer that? What is the difference in that? If
What
you
is-
know the rate for the rec coordinator.
I don't want the rate, I just want the difference on the total budget impact for fiscal year. Like, what is the impact to that $40,000?
For rec, I think it's gonna be, is it 8,000, 6 to 8,000? I could look it up. if
I
you
want to
wanna-
break down the 40,000 is what I'm getting at. So that is a 8%, that is a fraction of the 40,000. Where does and I understand COLA plays a role in that. What
Yep.
is the difference? What is the balance remaining and where does that come from?
Can Tom answer your question and I will get you the
I
breakdown
don't care
right
who
now?
answers it, sure.
Well, he wanted a plug, so I will get you an answer.
I think a key difference too is there was a change in how the select board, in theory, on how the select board tracks payroll. In the past, we took the community and economic development specialist and it was a separate line. And we also had the rec coordinator as a separate line under the rec budget. And now for seeing them all as employees under the select board supervision, they're all tracked under that one line under salaries. So now you're adding in the additional expense for the CEDS in that and the rec coordinator in that rather than being broken out. So that's a big jump in that. It's just shown as a collaboration, putting all those together. Oh, Thomas Gallinat, thanks.
So when I look at 2025 estimated year end, it's $0 on the CEDC salary compared to $0 in this proposed budget. So it doesn't feel like that is the reason for the difference from what I'm seeing.
I'm going to answer your question on breakdown, if that's okay. Exact numbers, if you want it to the penny, I'll have to get back to
I
you.
don't want penny, just generally. Yeah.
Roughly 18,000 or so is due to COLA, 18 to 20,000. And there's roughly $20,000 due to increased hours. And then there's the rec coordinator salary. The difficulty here, why you're hearing me add up to more than $40,000 roughly, is because, as Beth knows, the total amount of salaries for employees is broken out at 85% on that line and 15% on holiday, sick, and vacation, because that is the expense. Does that make sense where my numbers are at?
Fair. So you're basically saying about half of it, a little less than half of it, is for increased hours?
Yes.
Is that because we've added a position? Is it because, like, why?
The select board opted to increase the hours of the town administrator from 32 a week to 40.
Okay. And that comes to what, approximately in dollars? That was the 20 you were saying in
Approximately
dollars?
$20,000.
Okay, thank you.
Walter?
Walter Pomeroy. I know in this section, there's a line called insurances, and it's all through the budget. What is the health insurance effect really in this budget? What are we feeling for pain?
Health insurance itself would be in here and highway added together.
Right, it's in various departments, so it's hard to pick the number that says, here's what health insurance is doing to us.
You want an approximation?
Approximation of what the pain is.
Yep, certainly.
I understand, I was just hoping to get a number.
Yep, so it is 90, it'd be about $160,000.
That's our total cost for health insurance?
Approximately, yes.
And what was the increase roughly?
Hang on.
Thank you.
It was 9% increase on the town office expense. And on the highway, it was an 18.66% increase in cost. I would like to put a plug in that those insurance lines that I added up were for the highway department and office, and not for the library, so it's slightly higher.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions on page number 25? Did you have?
Under Robert's rules, no individual is supposed to be permitted to speak more than twice to a given issue. I am requesting a unanimous consent that that rule be waived for this and any other issue that comes up in this meeting, both past, present, and future. Is there any objection to that?
Past, present, or
Seeing- see-
past, present, or future?
So,
Eliminate
so,
individuals?
so I'm just going to reach in here and tear out a page and go from there. Thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
Two things. One, I want to compliment the board. The knowledge you're expressing and the speed with which you're expressing that knowledge of details of facts and figures is a lot different than it used to be. And, I think you are all doing a fabulous job. Two, I want to address the elephant in the room. Nobody has said anything that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people wearing the same shirt.
Mr. Chairman, I neglected to thank Mark, because Mark is the one that got the shirts for us.
You
From
can,
Johnson.
you can blame me.
Okay, are there any other pages, questions on page number 25 of the town report? Seeing none, we're going to move on to page number 26. There is one item I'd like to highlight on this page, and that is the cost for general insurance. It has risen by $10,000. The town of Johnson gets their general insurance. This is for properties, equipment, blah, 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 through VLCT Passive, which just about every town does, and it is a self-insurance program. But we are working on trying to reduce that increase. I believe a lot of that increase is because of the amount of money they've spent on floods in Vermont. Any other questions on page number 26? Lois?
I notice on line one, well, I noticed there is no line 191 and 192. And I'm wondering if one of those was the Conservation Commission, which I don't see anyplace else.
Give me 1 second. Line 191 is other dues. Line 192 in this is Vermont Trails and Greenways. I don't have an answer on that because the lines in the budget that we build in here don't line up in that scenario, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
Do you know which lines they are? Conservation is on line 196. It's on line 196 on
That's
page
the-
26.
That's the Conservation Reserve Fund. I'm looking for the conservation expenses.
Which line? Tom is looking for that right now. It does look like it's missing from the town report. It is in our general budget that we build. You don't find it, do you? So in the general budget that we build,
1,250.
that is at $1,250.
So when we approve the budget,
The voters are approving a sum of money to be raised by taxes. Obviously, this is the best foot forward we can do. I believe there would be expense in there.
And the totals are the same.
The totals on the end of the section are the same, so that it is in there.
Okay, so everybody knows that it's in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Any other questions on page 26? Yes?
Sorry, not to be a stickler, but between 196 and 190, 195 is missing, 91, 92. Could you just summarize from 89 through the Conservation Reserve Fund?
Yep. Hang on one second. Just got to find the right page. So 189 VLCT dues, which is the same as our large format budget. 190 is other dues for $575. 191 in the large format Lamoille County industrial dues. Tom might need to speak to that one. Next line, that's LEDC. That's Lamoille County Economic Development dues. Next line is Front Porch Forum fees for $200. The next line is Vermont Trails and Greenways for $500. Emergency Management Reserve Fund is in there, the same at $10,000. Conservation Commission expenses in there at $1,250. Conservation Reserve Fund is in there at $250. That is the summary from the large format. Thank you. Are we ready to move on to the next page? All right, page number 27 is committee expense and town office expense. There is no large ticket changes or anything to highlight on that page. Is there any questions on that page? Yes, Beth?
209 is missing on this one.
$209 on this page. Yeah. So you have office expense. The next item is record supplies for $4,000, and then there's printing and publishing for the $1,000. That's the same as the town report. Any other questions on page number 27? Okay, moving on to page number 28. There are two items that I'd like to highlight on this page. The first is row 233, and this is grounds mowing. You'll see a relatively large increase from about $1,000 to $15,000. This is not actually all increased cost. It's a combination of 233, 235, and 413. So you will see, two items below cemetery mowing has been zeroed out. This is to get all of the mowing for town properties under one line item so the taxpayers can see what it costs instead of having it scattered throughout. The next item with a relatively large increase is the animal control expenses, which is out of our hands. We were lucky enough to get a kenneling service for dogs, and we're hoping that that continues to work out. Any questions on page number 28? Okay, moving on to page number 29. We have library expense. Are there any questions on that? The only one here that the library was very patient with me on was their electricity expense, and that is, they did a very good job and due diligence. They are running 2 facilities right now, and after the move, they're gonna have some expenses in electricity and all that. Okay, moving on to page 30. Are there any questions on recreation expense? Page 31, are there any questions on skate park expense or historic society expense? Page 32, any questions on Tuesday Night Live expense? No, oh, yeah, Charles, please, yeah.
Charles Flom. I'm sorry, because you hopped through it. Page 30, the rec coordinator salary, I thought we had a part-time one. Isn't that Isabel?
The rec coordinator is a part-time employee. The rec coordinator's salary is encompassed in office admin salaries that Beth was asking about earlier. And that, you'll see it's been encompassed in that for years. Okay, seeing no other questions, I'm gonna move on to page 33. A couple items I'd like to highlight here. One is line number 367, which is buildings, grounds, maintenance, and supplies. This is for the town garage. You'll notice a large increase of $21,000. That links back to the state highway grant money that I started out with. It's $21,000 in planned expenses for energy improvements, but this is a money in, money out. Funds in, funds out, what it's shown. Next thing I'd like to highlight are lines 374 and 375. 375 shows the $86,160 we're bringing in from the asphalt or blacktop reserve fund. The line above it, which is paving, or the line below it, my apologies, contribution to paving reserve fund is $110,000. This is a new line. It's the same amount of outflow, but it's showing that our planned projects for paving are $196,160 at this time. A couple other items, lines number 376 and 384 were combined into one. It's a wash money-wise, but you'll notice that gravel went up and mud abatement went away. Any questions on page 33? Moving on to page 34. One thing I'd like to highlight here is line number 389, which is winter sand. It might look like a large increase of $15,000, but if you look back at 2024, we were spending $50,000. Last year, we got a one-time cost reduction, so we're back to par for 2 years ago. Any questions on that page? Charles, we already talked about appropriations. Yes, Walter?
Yes, Walter Pomeroy. I'm looking at line number 407, the capital reserve fund, that you're allocating 172, and that clearly relates back to the plan that you have on page 39. No problem there. But you're also on page 36 in your allocation of cash on hand. You've decided to stick even another $20,000 into that fund. So I'd like to, is there something with our capital plan that is short? Are we running low? Or why did we decide we need to put even more money than the 172 in that is part of the budget? But you took cash out of hand of another 20,000 to put in there. So we're really putting 192 in for the coming year. So I'd like to know why, the justification, why we felt we had to put more money in there. Is our plan not adequate?
Certainly. Obviously, you know, costs of things are very difficult to keep up with. That capital equipment plan is actually built out for 15 years, and every time we get new estimates, we're always off, even though we're building in inflation. The $20,000 that we dedicated was from last year's cash on hand, and that was because in the year 2030, it may be 2031, that capital equipment fund dips underneath $100,000 in balance. That's really a buffer that this board felt was a little bit close. So we injected a little bit of extra cash on hand instead of raising the tax burden for the next 10 years. Does that make sense? I don't believe I'm trying to get our cash on hand for this year. This year, we're actually proposing not $20,000 in addition, we're proposing $10,000 in addition.
Okay, well, I'm looking at, well, then on page 36, out of the prior year,
That was prior
we got
year.
20,000 and now we're putting another 10, so we're ultimately, we're putting in 30,000 more than we've planned or budgeted the last 2 years. So obviously, we're saying the capital plan is not adequate or et cetera. So I was wondering, are we going to update the capital plan so we have a better idea of what's going on, or?
We did a pretty decent overhaul of it back a couple months ago, and it does show that what we're putting in doesn't really keep up with it. Like I said,
Okay.
we're dipping down in 2030. The board felt like using some cash on hand to shape those peaks was appropriate, and the new board will certainly take up whether we just increase it on the contribution or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Bobby?
Yeah, Bob Hoy, yeah, you gotta increase your contribution. You gotta raise it up. There's no way anything's going down.
Yep.
And the price for insurance, my thing is, how'd the college get lesser insurance? If everything's based on insurance, that don't make sense, because I'm telling you what, insurance is in my back pocket.
Certainly. Getting back to the budget here. Are there any questions on page 35 or other questions on page 34? Skipping forward a couple of pages, page 37 is our proposals for cash on hand. And page 38 is where I'm going to end my presentation. This is really, if this was a dinner, this would be the steak, right? I'm going to go over the center table because $100,000 is very easy to multiply. If your property was worth $100,000 in value, at last year's tax rate, your tax bill would have been $908.60. With this budget's approval, your tax bill for that same property will be $945.93, which results in a $37.33 increase per $100,000 in value. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Well done. Mr. Moderator, I would like to echo what John Gregg said. I've been on a lot of boards in my life, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody handle facts and figures like Evan Patch does. And, maybe with the exception of Beth, but you're both up there, and you've done an excellent job. Evan, I certainly appreciate it, and I bet you everybody else here does too. Anyway, that's my little spiel.
It's a move to pay the bill. Let's do it. Let's pay it.
Are any further discussion? If seeing none, question is before you. Shall the voters authorize total fund expenditures for operating expenses of $3,699,957.86, of which an estimated $2,300,508.31 shall be raised from taxes, and $1,399,449.55 by non-tax revenues. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, the motion is carried. So, move on to Article 6. Oh, the dreaded Article 6. Just a second here. Okay, let me have 6, please. Thank you. When I was in elementary school, I dreaded being called upon to stand up and read something to the rest of the class. Nothing has changed. Shall the voters authorize the town of Johnson to collect property taxes from the town to the town treasurer in 4 equal installments, parens 32 VSA section 4792, as listed below, with delinquent taxes and assessments have charged against them in 8% commission after the 4th installment, 32 VSA 1674, and interest charges of 1% per month or a fraction thereof for the first 3 months, and thereafter 1.5% per month or a fraction thereof from the due date of such tax. Such interest shall be imposed on a fraction of a month as if it were an entire month, VSA 32 VSA 5136. Payments are due in the hands of the treasurer by 4 p.m. on the below due dates. First installment to be paid on or before Thursday, August 11, 2025. Second installment to be paid on or before Monday, November 10, 2025. Third installment to be paid on or before Monday, February 10, 2026. And fourth installment to be paid on or before Friday, May the 10th, 2026. Is there a motion with regard to Article 6?
Beth Foy, so moved.
Okay. Discussion. John?
Subject, but one,
John
I think
Gregg.
John Gregg. I think you've conquered your elementary school fear. 2, I don't know, there are obviously new people here, but I don't know if people realize this. David got here last night to Montreal at 1 o'clock in the morning from the west coast of Canada. So how many years have you been moderator?
Was it? I think it's 40-something.
All right, so 40-something years, but this is a contribution to the town because he pays his own airfare, he pays his own expenses while he's here. And so I think he is doing, for 40 years, he's done a hell of a job.
Thank you. John and others. There's only one guy decided he's going to leave now. Okay, is there a motion? Well, we have the motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is before you, and I'm happy to report. I get to read it to you. Actually, why don't we try this? Can I have unanimous consent to waive the reading of this article again? Is there anyone who objects to that? Seeing no objection, we've suspended the rules and waived my reading of it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. That moves us on to number 6. Should be 7 in here somewhere. 7. Shall the voters authorize the select board to appoint a town clerk as provided by 17 Vermont statutes annotated section 2651E? Is there a motion? There is a motion and a second. Does anyone care to address this issue?
I'll start off with saying that Rosemary is irreplaceable, but she's not going to stay with us forever. Rumor has it that this coming year could be her last year. And so what the select board is thinking is that we want to be able to do a recruitment for a trustee, or for a clerk and a treasurer, if you look at the next article. And with that in mind, and Rosemary's agreeing to it, if we can do that, that will allow us to recruit, find somebody from a larger area that isn't necessarily, right now, they have to be elected from the town of Johnson. It'll allow us to recruit from a larger area, and it will also allow us to have Rosemary train the new recruit for some months. Because like I said, she's irreplaceable, and it's going to be really hard to find somebody with all those skills that is necessarily living right in the town. And I know Rosemary wants to speak a lot to this, but if you would just say, no, she's just got, would you nod your head that you think this is a good idea, or would you like to speak?
Explain some of the duties that the town clerk does.
Okay, good. I'm gonna lower this down and then break it. Okay.
Now, everybody knows I'm not a public speaker, so this is a few of the
Nuzzle right up to that mic.
high points that the town clerk does. Appoint the assistant clerks, recording and preserving land records, issuing dogs, marriage license and hunting and fishing licenses, motor vehicle registrations, running elections. That's probably one of the major things for the clerk. And you also the clerk of the Board of Civil Authority, and you also hear tax abatements and requests for appeals. Setting the town clerk's office hours, and receiving and processing tax payments, receiving and directing phone calls and visitors, and administrating oaths and notary public services. That's the major things that the town clerk does do.
I don't know if I said this, but it is the select board's intention, if this passes, to appoint Rosemary to continue for the next year. Did I say that, or did I not? Okay, that's our intention.
Casey Romero.
Yeah, Casey Romero. A point of clarification, Mark. As you were speaking and describing this article, it seemed like you were saying that if the position continues to be elected, that the only candidates have to be residents of Johnson. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Beth has one. I see Walter. I have my eye on Walter all the time.
So, first of all, Rosemary is maybe the most trusted person in the town of Johnson. And she does talk a lot when she gets very comfortable with you. And she has more integrity maybe than anyone I've ever met, which is really saying a lot. So I think that if we don't pass this article, it's unlikely we're going to have the same characteristics that Rosemary exhibits every single day and just lives by in anyone that gets into the town clerk position. But if we don't make this appointment, it really does tie our hands in terms of who the town can select, and it makes it a little bit more risky. So if we do not pass this article, then that's a high risk we're assuming for our town. And personally, I don't like putting myself or my community at high risk because we don't know who candidates would be. And if we only had one person to vote for on an Australian ballot, that would be the person who would get the position. So I think that we really should seriously consider what the implications could be if we don't pass this article. Please pass the article. Thank you.
Walter Pomeroy. I hate to rain on the parade, but we actually need a third article today. And since it's not warned, we can't do, we can pass the two in front of us, but ultimately you won't accomplish what you want to accomplish. Title 17, 2646, little a, town officers, town vote to allow election of non-residents. We actually have to have a separate article to allow a non-resident to be appointed to this position. So we can approve you appointing these two positions, but without this third article, you are limited to only appointing somebody from Johnson. So the proposal must be approved by the voters at an annual or special meeting warned for that purpose. So ultimately, you are going to need another article, either in a special meeting or in the future, to allow you to appoint somebody outside the town of Johnson. Right now, you will only be limited to appointing somebody in the town of Johnson. I can share the statute with you if you'd like to look at it.
Do you have an opinion on this?
Hey, I'm just the moderator.
He's just the moderator. And I'm just seeing this right at this moment, which would also apply to the next article, I would guess. Yep, you're right, Walter. And my guess is that we would, looking at the time frame, we would probably have to have a special town meeting, which isn't the end of the world. And I would want all of you to come.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. The question is before you. Shall the voters authorize the select board to appoint a town clerk as provided in 17 VSA 2651E? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and that is passed. Moving on to Article 8. Shall the voters authorize the select board to appoint a town treasurer as provided in 17 VSA Section 2651F?
You want me to repeat myself? No. Rosemary, do you want to share what the treasurer does? She is an amazing help to the select board. She's the only person that knows where every penny is. And I'll just give you a heads up, there is a possibility that, and probably a great possibility, that this will not be the same person. It could be two separate people for clerk and treasurer. It very well likely will be.
According to the VLCT survey of 2024, 30% of municipal treasurers are appointed. Out of 181 towns that did the survey, 54 are appointed and 126 are elected. The main responsibilities for a treasurer is to maintain the town fund accounting system, prepare monthly financial reports for the boards, work with the town auditors, elected auditors. Currently, we have one that is not going to do re-election this year. And another thing is to general ledger maintenance, to make sure all the accounts included are in the general ledger maintenance system. and accept modules into the general ledger and maintain a chart of accounts. Attend educational sessions and do reconciling the general ledger to the monthly bank statements, do accounts payable, payroll, and do the tax billing for the taxes, and work with any financial banks for loans, and work with external auditors to prepare the financial statements, and any other duties that the board assigns.
Is there further discussion? John?
John Gregg. Rosemary, the two lists you've read of the town clerk's responsibilities and the treasurer's responsibilities, it sounds as if the treasurer has a lot more responsibility than the town clerk. Is that true? Okay. And then you said that it might not, in the next incarnation, be one person. It might be two people.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm wondering, I don't really need to know, but how the remuneration is assigned. You're going to take the one salary we have now, possibly break it into two people. But are they going to be weighted equally, or is the more significant responsibility of the treasurer going to put the treasurer in a more authoritative position?
I don't know that authoritative is the right word. They're both going to report to the select board. And I can't speculate on what the next select board's going to do because I'm not going to be there, but my guess is that there will be an increased cost. Rosemary's a good deal. So it's, you know, if it's two separate people, could be two separate healthcare policies. So I don't see us, you know, I'm not sure. Maybe the town clerk, I would think that could be part-time, treasurer part-time.
Yeah.
That's really,
Well, I'm thinking, you know, when children ask their parents, well, if there's a fire in the house and you can only save one child, which will you save?
definitely Rosemary.
No. But down the road, there's a fire in the town clerk's office, and there's a treasurer and a clerk. Which do the selectmen grab?
That's not going to be my problem.
Kyle Noose. How does, I forget, do the village trustees pay for part of Rosemary's salary and the town, or is that separate? Because I know that she's the clerk and the treasurer for the village too. So how does this affect the village and the town?
60/40 town. And she's not a village resident.
Right. Okay. So if we vote one way and the village could potentially vote a different way, and then we'd be 100% paying for whomever replaces Rosemary, and then village residents would be potentially paying for a whole different set of folks.
At village meeting, you voted on this last year, right?
Yes.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
But they didn't do the third article. But Walter wasn't at that meeting.
Sorry, I need to get my exercise. I think the treasurer is a fiduciary, correct? Like you have fiduciary responsibilities, an important fact for a treasurer. But in working with Rosemary over the years, before I was on the select board, I was involved in committees and Rosemary also helps with committee funds, meaning when committees raise money, she accepts the money that comes in. She helps pay out, so reimbursements, paying of refs for rec, for example, or reimbursements on big projects and managing reserve funds, like all of those kinds of things play into what Rosemary is dealing with from the Treasury side of things, receiving grant funds, making sure those grant funds are accounted to the appropriate cause. And Rosemary, like, if you have anything to add, please jump in. But I think that the things she listed are the things that are listed in the treasurer's list of responsibilities, but it's a pretty big job. And because we have so many committees and so many methods in which money moves, it is, I'm sure, complicated, and really appreciate everything you do, Rosemary. So thank you.
Not that long ago, she was doing all the books for the school, too.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is before you. Will the voters authorize the Select Board to appoint a town clerk as provided by 17 VSA Section 2651E? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is carried. Now, it is approaching 11 o'clock. Sometimes we take a break in the morning session, sometimes we don't. What's your favor?
Let's keep going.
That sounds like, that should be interesting. Okay, 8, that was the clerk. 9. Article 9, shall the town authorize the elimination of the Office of Town Auditor with future audits to be provided by a public accountant licensed in the state in accordance with 17 VSA Section 2651B, parens A, close parens. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And it is moved as printed. Is there a second? There is a second, Beth Foy.
You want to speak to it a little bit?
Well, you made it. You own it.
There you go. The elimination of the Office of the Auditors is something that I wish we weren't having to do. I guess we don't have to do it. It's up to the voters. But we have, since I've been on the board, lost an auditor every year. And when Dave got everybody lively and read the full warning at the beginning, you'll notice to elect an auditor for a 3-year term, for a 1-year term, which is a balance of a 3-year term, and a 2-year term, which is a balance of a 3-year term. So this year, our last auditor is not seeking re-election, and we are already doing audits for using a state licensed accountant. So the Select Board asks you to support this article. Thank you.
Hey, David, this is a ballot item. It has to be a vote by ballot, so you can motion to have the clerk cast one ballot if it's unanimous consent.
Just a minute.
If you see here, it's a town may vote by ballot at an annual town meeting to eliminate the position of town auditor. So you can ask the audience to allow the clerk to cast one ballot.
Where's oh,
That's just, or it's a ballot though, in order to be.
this authorizes the town to vote. Oh, by ballot, okay, I see. Remember. And this is simply an advisory action.
Unless they vote by ballot right now.
Well, I don't think it was warned as such. The high-level conference here has been dealing with 17 VSA 265 1B, which says the town may vote by ballot at an annual meeting to eliminate the office of auditor. As far as I can see here, any vote that we would take here would be simply advisory, but not binding, because we're at an. Well, hang on just a second. Two ways we can read the statute. One is that would allow us to vote by ballot in the manner that we would if there was a close voice vote, and have people filter through the clerks and receive a ballot and then cast and count. The other way you could do it would be to treat this as a merely advisory action by the town meeting, but nonetheless it would require some further action at an annual meeting. That's what it looks like as I read the statute. So the question is, do you want to do a ballot here, or do you want to leave it to another meeting? John? For those who might not have heard that, suggestion was that since there's already going to be a special town meeting to deal with the town clerk issue, that you could include the auditor issue with that meeting, thereby getting in conformance with the statute.
Eric Noose, I move that we have a paper ballot here and get this settled as best we can.
Okay. Well, okay. The only opinion I hear seems to be for a ballot, and not seeing anyone jumping up and down and waving their arms in opposition. We will proceed to a ballot, and the issue will be, if you vote yes, it means that you wish to eliminate the office of town auditor, and no, you don't want that to happen. That being the case, let's take sections here. If we can take the section over here, line up. You have ballots back there? Yeah? Nope. Have to.
So we're doing it?
That's how we're doing it. You have to find balance.
Could we have done just a stand up?
It says by ballot.
I'm hard of hearing, but when you did Article 8, you mentioned appoint a town treasurer. When you actually took the vote, you said town clerk.
Okay.
So do we need to go back?
No.
Just an FYI, folks, if you wandered in and didn't check in, it's going to mess up this vote. So make sure you checked in when you came in the door, because I didn't.
It's okay with you, Dave, it's okay with me.
There's no way.
Item number 8. So, I guess this is my fault. I hold a training for town meeting. Clerk, you always ask the audience to say one thing about the clerk, ask one back. That's how we do smaller town meetings. They don't have like 10. Yeah, which we need to do anyway. Well, what you do is you say motion to elect. I move to elect. Even I don't remember that.
You got Westman here?
I think if we walk the Pomeroy, yeah, right at the end. Hey, how's it going? Hey, Dan, how are you? We're gonna hand the ballots out. Right after this?
Right after.
You're all here. You're all here. Good, good. How'd this morning go? Oh, yeah. Good? One-to-one, instead of taking CLA into account? Correct. That's the problem. I don't know what they're going to do. We fought over everything. So, is this a problem around? Yeah, you knew certainly. Yeah, oh yeah. They had a reappraisal recently. Yeah, there was always so I was like, come up with well, I didn't get to my say, but used to go out a lot of no. I mean, I got Charlie was the vice chairman. Oh yeah. He was like, go to the techno with that. We have and he's like, let me take a look at it. And then he comes back to me and he's like, no, I see that there's problems that we need to fix. Right. This is good. This is good. Thank you. So that was good.
bunch of people.
What were you saying?
Well, because I didn't have enough vehicles. We would have bought another vehicle. My farm to the ferry is
If you wish to vote and you don't have a ballot, they're available at the check-in table by the door under the scoreboard. It's on Air Canada. They left more or less on time. Got there just a little bit late. I have a rental car lined up, but we got in so late. The question is whether they're going to be open or not. So we should sprint through the airport and get there and get the.
They do, they really. You can have everything rolling and all kinds of discussions, and there's nothing that throws water on it any quicker
Well,
than listening to you guys right
I
now.
got to where I needed to be. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's what counts. Well, probably with good reason. Very good reason. I have to go back and see if they. Is there anyone who wishes to vote on this but has not received a ballot? Thank you.
You like it? You like your shirt? I wanted it to be
There's a little balance up this way.
Yeah. Have you checked the dash? Yeah, okay. So wait, this is-
Oh, put it in your pocket.
Thank you. We have a, very good. Take your seats, please. The result of your balloting, total number of votes cast is 61. Excuse me. I'll do some arithmetic here. Actually, there are 66 votes cast, 61 yes, 5 no. Motion is carried. And now I'm told that we have had legislators among us. Are they still here? They are. Is there any, we have only one? Come on up. Come on around. Richard Bailey?
Got it.
Dave Williams.
Dave, how are you? Nice to see you.
Okay. Oh, no, we got the whole,
No,
the gang's all here.
the gang's all here.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Something happened.
Want to get out?
Yeah, of course. You want me to go first, or Richard, do you want to go?
Doesn't matter.
All right.
Good morning. At least I think it still is. Yep. Okay. Rich Bailey, your representative, freshman legislator from Lamoille 2, Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere. This year has been a huge learning curve for myself. I got appointed to the Energy and Digital Infrastructure Bill, and that is a new committee. Basically, I believe there's only a couple senior members on that, 3 senior members, and the rest are all freshmen, I believe. And we oversee all the energy bills, the global warming, in that group of bills, and we oversee the Agency of Digital Services, which is the agency that looks over all the computer systems that are being asked for, because we need to upgrade our computer systems, and this department oversees all that to make sure that those folks get the that we get the best bang for our dollar. And that's been our first bill that's come out of the committee, is an oversight bill, and that's headed to the House floor. The first month and a half has been basically what they call 101. All these agencies come in and they talk to you about what they're doing and to give you background. And then now we'll start working on bills once we get back. And they tell us the pace is going to pick up quite a bit. So it's been a huge learning experience, and I'm still learning, and will be learning for many years, or a couple of years anyway. So the energy bill, the governor submitted an energy bill which sort of makes modifications to some of the energy ones that have been passed to make them a little more palatable and less costly to track, and just makes it overall a little easier for changing mandates to goals and stuff like that. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dan Noyes. I serve on the Human Services Committee, represent with Richard Bailey, Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson, and Belvedere. Couple things that we've been working on. We're a policy committee for the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living, the Department of Health, but Population Health, and the Department of Children and Families. So the first part of the session, we have the budget adjustment. So we're the policy committee for those parts of state government. So we make recommendations to the Appropriations Committee based on what the administration has proposed in the budget adjustment. So this is like a true up of the FY25 budget so that we can get through the rest of the year. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time on is our nursing homes. We had a number of nursing homes that are in financial trouble, so we had to put $21 million into extraordinary financial relief. And then we had increased utilization of our nursing homes. So that was another $24 million just to keep these nursing homes being able to function. When we got the 26 budget, we had moved the increased utilization of these nursing homes into base funding. And we've actually put some language in the budget. We've recommended some language go in the budget to really look at extraordinary financial relief for nursing homes. Right now, they have to be in pretty big trouble for us to put this kind of money into them. And the alternative is that we don't have the resources to reach upstream and help people stay in their home and community through home health programs or through residential care facilities. So we end up putting our money towards the most expensive care, which is not the best use of our funds. So that's something we've been working on, like how we can reduce those nursing home costs so that we can make better investments to help people not get to that point, although I think eventually many of us end up. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was pilot program. So I've been speaking to people in town here. So pilot is payment in lieu of taxes. And so it's tied to the insured value of the state college. And then it looks at the grand list. So this dropped because your grand list went up. The colleges didn't change because it looks at the insured value of the college up there. So this is a problem. I've been talking to the Ways and Means Committee, and I've been talking to Representative Kimball, who's the vice chair, brought him all the information. They had no idea that this was an issue. And on Friday, they took quite a bit of testimony on it and really had some good discussion. I met with the chair briefly, and she said that they were going to deal with it when they look at what they're going to do with school funding budgets or school funding formulas, because they said that this is kind of a problem to not have that predictability that communities really need in offsetting the tax cost from the state property. So got some movement on that, and hopefully we'll be able to have that not happen in the future. So also put together a little update, our town meeting update. It's got our contact information on there, phone numbers, email for all three of us.
So usually at this time in the legislative session, we're at a point where we've moved off in a direction and you pretty much can tell what's going to be the hot items and where we're headed as we move into April and May and the end of the session. And what I would say about this legislative session at this point is that's not true, because we've got so many things up in the air. There's so much going on in Washington, particularly around healthcare issues. And you heard Dan talk about nursing homes that needed bailing out. We've got 8 hospitals in the state that are in deficit. We've got home health agencies, a number of them that are in a hard place. In fact, Franklin County, the home health agency went out of business, and Rutland took over on the work, doing the home health work in Franklin County. And we have FQHCs across the state, at least 4 of them, that are in financial difficulty. That is the backdrop. What you've got is with the federal government talking about adjustments and reductions to those states that have expanded their Medicaid programs faster than the rest of the country, and Vermont is right in that line to do that. So as they talk about that, it's going to make the end of the session, the April and the May of this year, really hard to deal with. Part of the reason I say that is because as it backs into all of the discussions going around education finance reform, I've been there through 3 formula changes in education funding. We've never been able to change a formula until you sweeten the pot with money from outside of the education area, like the general fund, transferring money over. And if we end up in a spot where we're really short on the in the Medicaid area, it will be harder to get a formula change this year. I would say from my vantage point, it's kind of 50-50, but eventually over the course of this 2 years, I expect we'll do something about education funding reform in that period of time. That's kind of a broad view. My morning committee is Senate Transportation. In the Senate, we're on 2 committees, unlike the House that's on 1. I chair the Senate Transportation Committee, and we're having trouble putting together budgets in transportation because of the decline in our revenues. And my afternoon committee is appropriations, where all of these fiscal issues will come and will land. I would just say about the pilot issue that Dan brought up, and I thank him for in the immediate taking a closer look at it. Because there's more and more towns that are putting in local option taxes, and that's where the money to fund pilot comes from. There's developed a surplus within the pilot fund, and I expect that sometime toward the end of the session, there'll be a more serious discussion about how we not build that surplus up and how we're fairer to the communities that get pilot out there. But, you know, that discussion hasn't happened yet. We have some conversations about what we're doing in that area, but later on in the session, I expect that we'll have a discussion about that.
Yeah, I see that Mr. Hoover, Trump, has got us down another 700 points today. So I'm kind of curious what kind of a statement you folks will have from Mr. Trump for that. And also for the idea that he sent 2,000-pound bombs to him, who the Marines say are danger close at 1.25 miles. You're going to be sending shrapnel from the river to the sea. So I'd like to know what you're going to say to Mr. Trump for us.
So I'm definitely concerned about this whole potential cuts to Medicaid. I know that's not really what your question is, but it keeps me up at night because 1% drop in the Medicaid match to Vermont is $19 million. They're talking 40%. We don't have the capacity at all. And that's really going to hurt our healthcare providers in this state. Anyone would know I think about it a lot, and I don't know what we're going to do.
Ask for money right here. They come to Johnson every year and ask them for money. Somebody was asking earlier today, what's going to happen when they can't get it? They're going to come to us again and again and again. They're going to go to you. You guys think that you guys better eat your Wheaties, because you're going to about ready to find out what happens when you got an idiot president.
I mean, Bob's not wrong. And my question is about FEMA money, and it's about state funding for emergency situations, whether it be floods, fires, whatever the emergency situation is. Because I'm also concerned about the same. I'm concerned that this week, okay, knock on wood, this doesn't happen. I'll knock with my foot. But we get lots of rain and we have lots of snow and then we have lots of water. So if we are in jeopardy of funds moving from the federal side of things, is the state considering what that means for both short-term and long-term impacts to communities like ours if we do get in a rough situation with a major flood or another major catastrophe? Maybe it's a tornado, maybe it's a fire, I don't know.
We did put money in the budget adjustment, which is the midterm adjustment, to help the communities that got flooded this last summer, almost in the same way that we did for the communities the year before in Johnson, got some of it, and the matching funds that, because some of the FEMA money needed matching. There's clearly discussions about creating a separate fund to have to rely on for matching funds for communities going forward. And, but, you know, the truth is, we don't have the capacity alone to deal with all of it. We can only do what we can do. But there is a lot of talk about if floods like that are going to be more common and happen more, that we have to make sure that we're ready to help communities make the match as best we can.
Sorry, I should have stayed here. A follow-up to that is that suggests that it goes back to, I think we probably talked about this last year too, but we need to be proactive in thinking about the way we're building. And it goes back, it all is all the really big topics, right? It's housing, it's food, it's all the things, it's infrastructure. Are there talks at the state level, not with just putting funds into budgets so that there is a reserve, but are there also talks about how the state can play a more active role in building out communities that are in flood zone and floodplains, for example, so that we don't have primary housing in those flood areas, so that we don't have critical infrastructure like food sources, like roadways, all of those things in those critical paths?
I actually think there's all kinds of conversations going on about that. Up until the flood 2 years ago, most of the encouragement for development was we needed floods in our downtown areas, and we want all of our development in downtown. And I think it's beginning to spread out because people are going, oh, Montpelier flooded, Barry flooded, and a lot of our traditional downtowns are built in floodplains. So that conversation about how you spread that out is happening. I will tell you it's slow. And I think we need to do more to look at things specifically like A&R and say to the Agency of Natural Resources outside of Act 250, I got a duplex going up between here and Jeff. It's taken us 3 years to get the permits for that. Just that, and we're gonna do a 3-unit building beside. In our smaller towns like this, there's not a lot of people that go through Act 250. It's the small guy who's gonna punch in a driveway and build a house and put 3 houses up. I think we have to streamline the process so wastewater and septic and stormwater and all of those things don't hold somebody up for 3 years to get that because we're starved for housing.
And just along that same lines, like most of our infrastructure was built in the downtowns and village centers that flood. And so when you look at trying to build outside of the floodplain, outside of our village centers. A lot of towns are stuck that they don't have the infrastructure to build. So, I think there's a lot of conversations going on around how do we direct the fundings to communities to extend water, wastewater outside of floodplains, if that's at all possible. And then, also really looking at age-specific housing and the fact that, a lot of our funding models have had caps on that. So senior housing, and I look at that as the possibility that might help us alleviate some of the pressure, because no one's going to move out of their house if they have no place to go. And if you're overhoused, we need to be making investments in age-specific housing outside the floodplain, but also where we have access to transportation and services.
I'd say one other thing about flooding, and I think both of the guys on the House side may have introduced this. We went in front of, had breakfast at Morrisville Water and Light. And Morrisville Water and Light, Scott Johnstone, who is the manager there, said that before this last flood this last year, they consciously, 5 days ahead of the time that the flood was coming, drew down Green River Reservoir and drew it down to give them capacity to take more water in the middle of the rainstorm. And they got a nastygram from A&R saying to them that if they did this again, they were breaking the law. And so they're in a position, so I've introduced on the Senate side, and I think they've introduced on the House side, that the governor could call an emergency, and those dams that are like Green River Reservoir, like Wrightsville Dam above Montpelier, which we knew almost was at the point where the dam was unsafe, that you could call an emergency and you could 5 or 6 days ahead of time start drawing those places down. I think we have to think out of the box differently than we were and say, how do we prepare ourselves better for situations like that? And I think that's one of the examples. I think if you can draw down Green River Reservoir 2-3 feet, it might be very helpful to this community, to Cambridge, to the communities now that have lost a bunch of housing.
And when we were talking to Scott, he's like, if I could even take 6 inches off the peak, might make a huge difference. 6 inches, right? Yeah.
Yes, still learning this whole process. Right now, my focus is on trying to make sure that we can try to get stuff affordable here in Vermont. And again, as Rich and Dan said, we need to step out of the box on some of these issues and look at, have these discussions with A&R saying, we've got to have movement on this one way or the other to try to resolve some of these issues. And that the dam thing was one of them that we're working on. And again, we'll try to see what we can do to try to make it more affordable here.
Pointing at me. Vanessa Taranjo. In terms of housing, I really think the state of Vermont needs to consider rent caps. My rent has gone up, I was just notified, by almost $400. I've lived in the property less than 2 years. It went up $100 last year, and I can't afford it. I'm one income, I have 2 kids. It's become insanity. So I really think Vermont needs to look at rent caps. Thank you.
Hi, Margot Warden. I was wondering if you have anything to share about the conversations or thinking in Montpelier about Vermont State University Johnson campus?
I mean, we're in the middle of making the investments that we said we were going to do to make sure that it's still open and viable and has and we've been up there a number of times, meeting with the chancellor and meeting with the president, and making sure that they know how important this is to our community, and that we're going to continue to make the investments to keep it going for sure. But yeah, it's definitely something we think about.
I think the last 5 million of the transfer from Northern Vermont University to Vermont State University is in the budget, and the commitments we made around that. I think we're still on track for the nursing program at the school. Some of this, we put up the money and we do the help around that. The board is in control of a lot of the decision-making process. In some respects, I wish that we had more of an ability to have more of an effect on the board.
So I realize that the board's making the decision, but do they, like in terms of what you're able to provide, in terms of the impact that it would have on this community and Lamoille County, surrounding communities, if in fact it were to close? I mean, do you feel that you have any kind of push or pressure on that?
Well, basically, we will have put into the system nearly $200 million through COVID and that. And I can tell you, having been in the room when Jane Kitchell is chair and I both had campuses, one in Linden, one here. And we put all of our effort into making sure we've taken care of the back debt for the system. We have helped bring on the new IT system. We've helped with things like funding the nursing program. Some of that was more for this, more federal money than ours, but we've done all of those things. What we can't do from the legislature is manage the thing on the day-to-day. But from our vantage point, where it's mostly they come to us for money, we've ponied up as much as we can. And I'm hopeful that we're going to find a path forward, and we're going to find a way to make sure that this place is stable and has enough students so it works. What the system is doing much better now at getting kids online than it ever was before, because the real place that's been kicking our butt is places like Southern New Hampshire University have been stealing students away from us. And we have to find a way to be competitive with that. And that's some of the reason we put so much money into the IT systems. I think I can speak for everybody up here. We're doing everything we can think of. And there's nothing we wouldn't do to keep the campus here.
John Gregg, you're doing everything you can think of, which is great. Is there anything we can do? Because I remember when we were all standing out on the street corner on a Sunday with signs, and the Free Press and various other people came and put that on the front of the paper. Do you have, since you said you wished you had more authority vis-a-vis the board, is there anything that we as townspeople can do to help you?
Make sure you tell all your friends, social media, that Johnson State's open, good place to go to school, go get continuing ed. We just need more students. It's just about make sure people know that the campus is open, it's viable, there's a nursing program going in. I mean, I think it's just around making sure everyone knows that the college needs students.
Yeah, going back on what Rich was saying, and I always thought our colleges should do this, and I think they're finally getting on track, is the online learning. I think that's going to be a great resource to help keep these colleges going here.
They've had a pretty good tradition here that every now and then they've had the chancellor come to a select board meeting here and people in the community show up and do it. I'll tell you what that does. It keeps them on notice that this place, people in this community are watching what's happening. I would make a suggestion that you guys plan on doing that, you know, I'd say twice a year, and have them to an open meeting with the select board. That way you get to ask the questions and they have to answer you. And it's good for the community and it's good for the board and the chancellor's office and the new president to understand what the community's thinking and the support that it has here. And so I would keep that up in some regular fashion.
One question. Well, about 6 months ago, there was such a meeting at the town offices. I think it was with the chancellor, whoever it was.
Yes.
There were probably 10 or 15 of us there maximum. Is there a way that the board could schedule the type of meeting twice a year that Rich is talking about, and somehow encourage more people to come to, more people of the town to come to the meetings, so that sense that we care about what happens at the college is made more evident? And is there a way of making a motion or whatever that the select board take this under advisement to talk about whether or not they can effectively schedule a meeting twice a year?
If Mark makes free pizza, I'm sure everybody will go up.
The pizza's getting cold.
Are you?
A couple of quick points. First off, I was told by one of the board members underneath the chancellor that actually that's the one thing about Johnson that's really working right now, is that they have their online presence, but they turned around and they broke the faculty contract and sent all that to Alabama, where they're paying the people like 1/4 of what they were paying the professors here. Yes, yes, yes. The second thing is that you guys need to lean on that board more. I mean, I was part of the task force, the one for the town and the college. Those guys didn't even want to give us a room. I mean, that's how out of touch they are. They didn't want to give us a room, and we had to keep on going after them. They were like, liability insurance, you can't meet here on campus. I mean, give me a break. So that's two statements. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and I had brought it up to the select board before, but really didn't apply, but now it applies now, page 35, in which we've got all of these programs, the aging, the Lamoille City, Lamoille County Home Health, the Family Center, Meals on Wheels. All of these things, once again, are going to be impacted by whatever these guys are going to decide on what they're going to cut. So the select board really couldn't answer that question as far as the impact to our towns, but maybe you could give some voice to that.
In terms of the cuts that are proposed to Medicaid, I have no idea how we're going to backfill that. It's millions and millions of dollars that come into this state to fund the agencies, and it doesn't even fund them 100%. That's why they're coming here and doing fundraisers all the time. You know, we'll have to see. They say they're not going to, I hear from one, they're going to cut it. Other ones say they're not. I mean, the Older Americans Act, which funds the area agencies on aging, the case management there, the Meals on Wheels programs, that's in the continuing resolution that ends on March 14th. I don't know. I wish I had an answer.
Just so you get a picture, our overall state spending is about $8.5 billion. That's all in. That's our resources with the federal resources. Of that $8.5 billion, 2.3 billion is Medicaid and funds all the stuff that you're talking. Our federal match is about 56%, and we contribute on the state side about 44%. It's the largest single spending item within the human service, within the general fund budget. And I would, I have to say, when I walk in and I see Alice Whiting sitting in the back, I immediately think of my dad and both of my parents. I couldn't have kept my parents at home till the end without that. And I say that because Alice was in my dad's class in high school. And, but my parents were able to stay home, and we couldn't have kept them home without home health. I would kill myself to make sure that they were funded adequately.
Hi, I'm Glo Whibble. I was the director of the Out and About Adult Daycare Center for 13 years. And I can just say from what the proposed cuts that they're looking at for Medicaid, and then also the adult children and adult children food program, all these kinds of programs would kill our budget, would close us down. There would be no way that we'd be able to help the frail elders in our community stay independent, like you were talking about. It's a combination of maybe keeping the nursing homes whole, keeping home health whole, keeping the adult days whole. Who's going to be paying for the care for their elders are the relatives, the parents, children, whatever. The system is going to fold. The level of cuts that they're talking about, I've been retired. I'm 73. I get Social Security now. I've been listening to what's happening. That's all I get to do all day. So I can tell you there is so much stuff happening right now at the federal level that is going to decimate a state like Vermont. And so I'm here to tell you, to encourage you, if you did vote for the felon, the important thing is to get to the streets, because the courts are not going to be listened to. They've gotten injunctions saying that they have to start giving out the money again, unfreeze the money, and it's not showing up. It's not being unfrozen. The Treasury guy, who's one of the authors of Project 2025, is in charge of the Treasury. He's not releasing the monies. So it's going to be a very interesting thing when we have a constitutional crisis, when the courts are not being listened to by the executive branch, and when Congress has not stuck up. So call your legislators, federal legislators, but also call legislators in other states and let them know that they need to take back their responsibility in Congress to be the one who distributes, approves any funding. It's going to require people getting in the streets, I hate to tell you, but the time is now. This can't continue. We're going to be, in a third world war, because we're now, Trump said, well, our official language is going to be English. I bet soon it's going to be Russian.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Before we go on, I just want to say, I didn't get any response to, we got locally here, can we have the selectmen agree to talk about whether, at some point, whether or not we can have these meetings with the college and with the board so they understand the importance of the college to this community?
Can I
Okay.
just say yes?
Just quote, I quote, just say yes, end quote.
If you schedule the meeting while we're not in Montpelier, I'll be here,
I have a very impatient man sitting next to me who has put 23 years into making pizza. And he tells me that if we don't break for lunch, what you'll get will taste like his first pizza. We are in recess for lunch. Okay, folks, we're back in session, whether we look like it or not. Going to Article 10. Shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Johnson Public Library Reserve, to be used for the purpose of offsetting future expenses to be funded by any or a combination of unexpected funds from the Johnson Library equipment, building maintenance, equipment purchase current year, the building capital expense lines of the budget, or a reservation of the year-end budget surplus in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. Is there a motion with regard to Article 10?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I guess. This article is proposed, very similar to the rest of the reserve funds, to be able to set aside some funds for this year, for next year or other projects. And ultimately, it helps stabilize the tax rate instead of seeing spikes and not. I do believe Jess is here from the library, if she'd like to add anything. Okay, thank you, Jess.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is yours. Shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Johnson Public Library Reserve, to be used for the purpose of offsetting future expenses to be funded by any or combination of unexpected funds from the library equipment, capital building maintenance, equipment purchase, current year, the building capital expense lines of the budget, or a reservation of a year-end budget surplus in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2804. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. On to 11. Okay. The 11, shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Beautification Committee Reserve Fund for the purpose of funding the operation and expansion of the Beautification Committee, to be funded by unspent funds annually allocated to the Beautification Committee in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2804. There is a motion to that effect. Is there a second? There is a second. Discussion.
Adrienne Parker. I'm Chair of Beautification Committee. We do work with public art and just beautifying projects with small grants and planting around town. We're just looking to expand some of our funds to be able to do larger projects for bringing some beautifying products to town. We're always looking for volunteers, so if you can follow our Facebook account, you can keep an eye on that, because we're always putting calls out for help with doing plantings and stuff. So thank you for your consideration of this. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. The motion is to establish a reserve fund to be called the Beautification Committee Reserve Fund for the purpose of funding the operation and expansion of Beautification Committee, to be funded by unspent funds annually allocated to the Beautification Committee in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. Article 12, shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the Class 4 Road Reserve Fund, to be used for the maintenance of Class 4 roads, to be funded by and one or in combination of dedicated budget item year-end balance from Class 4 maintenance budget line, or a reserve of year-end budget surplus in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2804. Is there a motion?
Yes.
There's a motion. That is a motion and a second. And who would like to speak to it, please? Oh, I think
You got a question, Beth?
I do.
No.
I'm just wondering if grant, a source of revenue, should be included in this. So maybe an amendment to include grant funding to be put into reserve.
That sounded like a question, not a.
It's a question. It's up to you.
I believe the board would be open to that idea. Knowing how grants work, traditionally, it's going to be money in, money out with a project, but I don't think any board members would be opposed to that amendment.
Are we allowed to amend this?
Yes.
On the fly?
I'll make it.
And the amendment is?
So the amendment would be a combination of dedicated budget line items, year-end balance from the Class 4 maintenance line, budget line, a reservation of year-end budget surplus, or grant, unspent or allocated grant funding. Unallocated, it'd have to be unallocated because otherwise it would stay in the operating budget. So remove the word or, in or a reservation of year-end budget surplus. So just remove the word or then, and then after surplus, comma, or unallocated grant funds in accordance with blah, 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 blah.
So is unspent out of it, or did you include unspent in that?
I don't think we need the word unspent.
Okay. So budgets, year-end budget surplus allocated?
I think that was Paul I heard. Surplus, comma, or grant funds in accordance with. So year-end budget surplus, comma, or grant funds in accordance with.
Year-end, the budget surplus is already in there, or allocated? Just
I just think that a generic grant funds would be appropriate because they would have to be unallocated. I think it's just implied in the fact that it's funds available. Rosemary, do you agree that it doesn't matter to have the word unallocated? Doesn't matter, yeah, so we don't need the word unallocated.
Well, if I just stay where we are.
Yep, not moving.
So we're looking at on the same line that starts of year-end budget surplus. And is there an insert there?
Yes, so it would be from the following statement, the previous statement, the first statement is year-end balance of class 4 maintenance budget line, comma, a reservation of year-end budget surplus, comma, or grant funds. So I'm just using like a comma separated statement, removing the first or and adding a second or, like just shifting it.
Okay, so I have a reservation of year-end budget surplus, and then or grants?
Yep. In accordance with, yep.
Okay. So it's, here, maybe this is a way to approach this, unanimous consent. Do I have the unanimous consent to change the wording of the last sentence to go of year-end budget surplus and grants in accordance with 24 VSA, et cetera? Does that do it? Do I have unanimous consent to make that change? There being no opposition, I have unanimous consent. Is there any further discussion of this article?
Hey, I'm Nat Kinney. I'm just wondering if this signals a desire from the board to start putting more money into class 4 roads? Or sort of what's the reason for wanting a reserve fund at this point as opposed to some point in the past?
Thank you, Nat. The background for this article, it was a request from the Johnson Planning Commission, which we have the chair for that here, early on in 2024. And part of the thinking was to plan better for projects. As you know, as a former select board member, there's the municipal road general permit compliance issues, and those are starting to trickle down to class 4 roads as well. So this allows us the ability to get slightly ahead of the ball. We have not talked about raising the funding for that line item, but with a reserve fund, I'm sure that those conversations will come up at next year's budget.
What's going to happen to the class 4 roads?
Identify yourself to the record, please.
Oh, sorry, Charles Flom. What's going to happen to those class 4 roads that have become trails?
You're talking about a class 4 road that has been reclassified as a legal trail, correct? As far as I know, the select board has had conversations, but I don't know of any that are currently in the process. There's quite a lengthy process to reclassify a road. We have discussed them in a couple of meetings, but we have not started the process on any of them.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is, oh, sorry. You can bring the baby even if it's not registered to vote.
My name is Aubrey Wagner, and I live on the Sinclair Extension, which is a Class 4 road. And I'm interested in some funds helping support this road be maintained by the town. There's 7 kids that live on that road and 3 permanent residents, plus a ton of traffic from snowmobiles and ATVs. And I think it would be really helpful to have that road maintained by the town. All the folks that live on that road don't have finances to maintain it, and it's a complex road with like steep embankments. we are out there maintaining it oftentimes by hand with pickaxes and shovels, and it would be really nice to have support from the town, since it basically is, like its residents live on that road. If we could just extend that road until it turns into a true Class 4 where cars can't even travel, that's of interest to everyone. I speak on behalf of everyone on that Sinclair Extension Road.
Hi, Paul Warden. I am on the Planning Commission, and as Evan said, the Planning Commission felt strongly that Class 4 roads are a town asset, recreational asset, as well as obviously important for the people who live there, and we very definitely support this issue. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is yours. So the town established a reserve fund to be called the Class 4 Road Reserve Fund to be used for the maintenance of Class 4 roads to be funded by and one or a combination of a dedicated budget item, year-end balance from Class 4 maintenance budget line, or a reservation of year-end budget surplus and grants in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, no. The ayes have it. A second. Does the meeting end when the moderator can't talk anymore? Article 13, shall the voters of the town of Johnson advise the select board to investigate and pursue subdividing jointly owned property within the village of Johnson. Properties to be included but not limited to are the mill house, village garage, town garage, lower storage building, and 180 plus minus acres off Lenway Lane behind the town and village garages. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. So just a little background on this article. This is an advisory article. As most of you well know, there are jointly owned buildings with the Village of Johnson, and the village came to the select board in October area, and they were talking about the subdivision of 180 acres, or they were talking about being interested in it behind the town garages. And this select board was not opposed to hearing ideas, but we all felt strongly that the voters should weigh in, understanding that this is an advisory article, and if any town property is to be sold, there is already a process there. I believe it has to be warned in the paper, and it can be petitioned. So really, the heavy thing here for the board is, if the town is not interested in the select board talking about subdivision of properties, we would like to know that now so that we don't spend countless hours on something that the people that own the property are not interested in. We're really kind of looking for direction here. This is an advisory article. Do the townspeople want us to investigate it, come up with some ideas, or not? That's correct, right?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Further discussion?
My name's Kristen McDowell. I have a question that's probably pretty obvious. You mean to subdivide it to sell pieces of it off?
Not necessarily. There was conversations about subdivision, so of multiple different properties. One example would be Currently, right now, the town garage that the town trucks and the town employees are in for the highway department is 50% owned by the village. And the same thing for the village garage is 50% owned by the town. This has caused issues for past boards when things like maintenance or changing the look of a building come up. And it would be very clear that subdivision, if it were to happen, I can't speak for a future board, but what would be sensible is the village owns the village garage and the property that it sits on, the town owns the town garage and the property that it sits on. The 180 acres, we haven't discussed excessively. This board just kind of took a step back and said, we want some information. The municipal building is also owned 50% by the town and the village. And while the future look of the municipal building might not be 100% known right now, I can tell you from serving on the board, and probably other board members that are in the room can tell you that a lot of times maintenance of that building is difficult because one entity may have the funds where the other doesn't, and we don't always line up. So in that scenario in the past, they've talked about one entity owning the building and the other entity paying rent. That way, when something comes up, the one entity that's an owner can take care of it instead of needing the other entity's permission. Nothing set in stone here. I don't think we've talked about selling any assets,
Okay.
to answer your question. Maybe I'm being too long-winded and I apologize.
No, I understand, now I understand better that it's both properties that you talked about are owned by both the town and the village.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't care who answers, so you guys can point at each other all you want. So I thought that I was going to be supportive of this, but I didn't understand, I guess, fully what I thought this was. When I look at this list of assets, I think it makes sense for the buildings you're talking about to be divided up between the two entities. That makes perfect sense to me because it is problematic in getting things done quickly. However, when we're talking about 180 plus acres off Lenway Lane, that changes my ears perk a little bit because I don't understand. Are you talking about splitting up the 180 acres between the entities separately from discussions around the buildings? Like, what does this actually mean?
I take back my response. No, we're not. This is just the beginning of the discussion. I think the town has voted on this particular piece in the past and voted no, we wanted to keep it. But right now...
By it, you mean the land?
The land, the 180 acres of land. This just allows us to talk to them about different options. We more likely would sell the whole parcel. But that, I can't speak for future select boards. Anything we do has to come back for a vote, no matter what. So this just allows us to talk to the village and say, to be honest, the village wants out from a few of these things. And my sense is they would like us to give them money. But that none of that can happen without coming to you for a vote no matter what. This just gives us the chance to sit at the table with the village. You can vote no, or Beth, you could amend it.
Why, thank you. I can vote. I know. I have my choice and vote. That's why I'm here. I was considering amending it, but if it is have a conversation, I maybe hesitantly approve, thinking I'm going to vote for it. So my 2 cents, but thank you.
You'll be joining me.
I've long been frustrated by the lack of maintenance, of course, on the mill house, which has always been inhibited by this sort of dual ownership. You talk about us to town, the potential transfer of money from one entity to the other as you're keeping in mind what the value of these properties are. Also keep in mind that there's some liabilities with these properties as they're old, mill sites. That mill house, obviously, problems with lead remediation and things like this. So before we go, and I think this is a good idea that we should separate our stake in these properties. But we need to be realistic about what these properties are worth or not worth.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. The motion is for the voters of town to advise the select board to investigate and pursue subdividing jointly owned property within the village of Johnson. Properties to be included and not limited to are Mill House, Village Garage, Town Garage, Lower Storage Building, and 180 plus minus acres off Linway Lane behind the town and village garages. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Which leads us to the place we've all been waiting for, Article 14. To such other business as may properly be brought before the town meeting. Nothing that is done under other business is binding. And here I thought you were going to make the motion to adjourn.
No, I wasn't. Thank you, though. I just want to say thank you to the board. I know that it's a lot of work and a lot of hours. I really do appreciate it much more than I did 4 years ago. So thank you. And I just wanted to really call out our road crew because it has snowed a lot this winter and they're always out making sure the roads are safe. And I really, really appreciate it. That means lots of no family time and lots of lack of sleep and all the things you can imagine. So thank you to the road crew. And lastly, thank you to the road crew. Yes. And lastly, Lamoille Lancer girls are in playoffs. Come Thursday, root for the home team, 7 o'clock at Lamoille Union. And hopefully they make it to the odd and win the whole thing. Fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping for.
I just like to point out, as everybody knows, we've been going through this community process for reimagining Johnson. And we had several big get-togethers and lots of folks, and a lot of folks that are here now that are hanging in there were involved with that. But I'd just like to urge folks that maybe haven't followed through beyond that a lot of the subcommittees or task groups have been working away. They've got really good notes on what they've done. And if you haven't been tuned in to where they are, take a look. But we're in planning, it's always critical. It's always nice to do the 50,000-foot look and come up with pie in the sky stuff. But when you start getting down to the nitty-gritty, that's when we really need input and thoughts from folks. So if any of you are here and have a little bit of time, I'd urge you to look into what the working crews have done, and either talk to the chair or other members, or show up at one of the meetings and give your 2 cents, because it's going to be critical for follow through if this is really going to amount to anything. You'll have to look on the website there, because all of these subcommittees have different meetings. We don't have I don't believe there's a large one ready to go. Maybe somebody else could speak with that. Yeah, I know that next week, there's a lot in here. As a matter of fact, all these notes are in this book, and they've got a bunch of them up here near where we voted in the table, so feel free to grab one. I know the one on outdoor recreation, we've got a meeting coming up, I think it's next week, up at the SHAPE building at the college. So jump in, we need help.
So, following up
On that, I'm Seth Jensen, Deputy Director of Lamoille County Planning Commission, also, as of last April, a Johnson resident. We are in the process of updating the regional plan, and there's a survey on our website, as well as some hard copies out in front of the library for voting. There's going to be a big focus on flood recovery and flood resiliency in this plan update, so we would love to have as many responses from Johnson as possible. Feel free to go onto our website or pick up a hard copy in front of the library. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about what all that means after the meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the glazier. There's too much glazier in Johnson, Vermont. You can't expect it to have that much window frontage on north side of the street.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Anything further?
Okay, Matt. Let's hear it. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, is there a second? That motion is not amendable, it's not debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, by? By.
On your way out, buy a whole pizza.